Aric David here. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope your 2024 has been amazing so far. I hope 2023 ended well for you. Happy holidays, all that stuff. I wanted to take a moment to go through the housing market of 2023 and compare that to the housing market of the prior year in 2022. So let's start with the amount of homes sold and the inventory. The amount of homes that were sold in the first month of 22 was 2,291. In January of 23, we only sold 1,742. That is a 500 home difference, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I mean, that's a pretty good percentage when you're only dealing with a couple thousand. So if you fast forward to June of 22, there was 4,106 homes sold versus 3,500 homes sold in 23, June of 23. And then fast forward to October of 22, there was 2,800 homes sold in that month. In 23, there was only 2,500 homes sold that month, which is only $300 or 300 house difference. And that continued in November and December as well. It's our slower months anyways. But I think one of the reasons why was the interest rates started to creep lower, and that's why. But we'll get to that in a second. On the other hand, the sell prices of homes of the two different years, in January of 22, the average sale price was $309,000. In January of 23, the average sale price was $312,000. Not a huge difference, but even with the interest rates being as different as they are for that month, which we'll get to, the home prices, the average home sales still grew for the month of January between the 2 years. In most cases, I'd say that the average sale price between the months of the years ranged about 10 grand. There was one, I believe it's May. There was a $20,000 difference between the average sale price of May 22 and May 23, which is crazy. Now to the why. The reason why the amount of sales have dropped since 22 is the interest rates. So back in January of 22, interest rates were at 3.2% for that month of January. For the month of January in 23, they were 6%. If we fast forward to June of 22, they were 5.7%. So that's when they started jumping, was around April. So by the time we got to June, it was 5.7% on the interest rate. On the June of 2023, we were at 6.5%. And then if we go down to October of 22, we were at 7%. And then October of 23, we actually topped out at 8%. It has dropped since then. We are now down to about 6.5%, which is awesome. Still not the 3, but we are seeing signs of improvement, and we do expect that to improve even more throughout this year. So because of the interest rate increase, it wasn't only buyers that were deciding to get off the market and not purchase right now until interest rates drop. It was also sellers who didn't want to sell their home, especially if they had like a 3% interest rate, and then they'd have to turn around and buy a new home for, with a 6% interest rate or an 8% interest rate. So the interest rates raising definitely stalled out the market on both sides, both the buyer and the seller sides. The interest rates also affected the equity growth in homes on average. In 2020 and 2021, we experienced a 20% growth in home values both years. So 2020 was a 20% growth, and then 21 was a 20% growth. So in 2 years, home values on average increased by 40%, which is insane, which is why they increased the interest rates to help quell inflation, make it harder to purchase, make the payments higher. The home values are not going to increase that way because then nobody's going to afford them. But even though the growth has slowed, it has not stopped. There's a lot out there, people saying that home values are falling. Home values aren't falling. Whenever somebody lists their home, if they overprice it, they have to pull back and drop that list price so that they can get it sold because they don't have any buyers out there that are willing to pay that amount for it. On average, throughout 2023, home values still increased the 3 to 5% that has been seen prior to the 2020 COVID housing boom. To give you an example of how much the interest rate affects the monthly mortgage of your home that you purchase, these are very crude examples, but it will definitely help you get an idea of what's going on here. If you were to have purchased a $300,000 home at a 3% interest rate back in 22, your monthly mortgage, and this is not counting taxes and insurance, that's factored separately. They're still paid out of your mortgage, but I'm not factoring them in because they can vary depending on where you live, how old the house is, all that stuff. So just factoring in principal and interest with a 3% interest rate, that $300,000 home would cost you $1,200 a month plus taxes and insurance, $1,200 a month. Purchasing that same home at $300,000 at a 6% interest rate, which now that home's worth more than $300,000, but at a 6% interest rate, that is almost an $1,800 a month mortgage payment, not counting taxes and insurance. So that's $500 difference right there for 3% difference on a $300,000 home. That's actually valued more than that today. So to give you an example, I have a client that's actually looking to purchase around the $250,000 range, and the lender is stating that her monthly payment with taxes and insurance included is going to be around $1,800 a month. When I bought my first house in 16, I bought it for $185,000 at a 3.5% interest rate. Taxes and insurance included in my monthly mortgage was about $1,250. I think it got up to $1,350 at one point, but that was on a $185,000. That home is now $300,000 or more, and then the interest rate. So I mean, to purchase that house again would cost you about $2,500 a month. Whenever just 7 years ago, it cost me about $1,300 a month. So if we consider that last example that I just gave on the interest rates, and then we look at the prediction, interest rates are said to, they're going to be falling to 5, maybe 5.5% throughout the year. Sometime in third quarter, maybe fourth quarter is where we're hoping that we land at that 5%. I think it will still keep home prices from inflating too much, but it will also allow people who want to purchase to be able to purchase. Keeping that in mind, there are a lot of buyers who are not trying to purchase right now because they're waiting for interest rates to fall. What is going to happen with all those buyers whenever the interest rates do start to drop? What's going to happen to the home values, how much people are willing to pay for a home whenever the interest rate drops by another 1 or 2% from what it is today, and more of those buyers come out and start competing for those homes? I don't think it's ever going to get back to that 20% growth in equity in 1 year, but I think that people will start to pay over list price more often. Fewer homes will have to drop their price. More properties will hopefully start hitting the market because sellers are like, okay, 2% difference between what I've got now and what I can purchase isn't a big deal. But I think that this is probably one of the last times that it's not a buyer's market by any means, but I think this is one of the last times for a while that we will see it to where it is more of a buyer's market. Buyers have less competition with other buyers. There's not as much inventory. Homes sit a little longer, so you might have more leverage with that, the seller of the home wanting to sell the home. But I feel that once this interest rate stuff kind of starts sorting itself out and settling, and we get more to that 5% and people realize it's here to stay kind of thing, I think more buyers are going to start coming out and there will be more competition for buyers. So if you're thinking about purchasing, you can always end up refinancing the rate. I know a lot of lenders are doing a free refinance until the end of 2024, so that if you do purchase something right now at like a 6.5 or a 7, and say they do drop to 5.5% by the end of the year, they're planning on refinancing your home for free to get you that better interest rate, so it'll lower your monthly payments. If the interest rates don't fall as predicted and you are in that house, hopefully you worked out the numbers and everything that you were fine where the interest rate was and you weren't banking on it to drop to lower your monthly so you could afford the house. But you can always refinance whenever they do start to fall. It may end up costing you through a different lender or something like that in the future. But the home prices are going to start creeping back up a little more, a little faster with an interest rate drop. If it doesn't happen, you're still going to get the 5% in equity growth between now and then for the year, but you won't be paying more for the home because you're trying to compete with another buyer. So those are my thoughts for 2024, and those are the numbers for 2023 compared to 2022. I hope this video was informative enough. If you liked what you saw, please like and follow, and I will try to get out more information to you guys as soon as I can. Thanks a lot.